Hey everybody, it's ENDYMION, and to say there's a big storm of nonsense going over there at Disney would be a massive understatement. Now things have gone from bad to really not very good at all, as you'll see later on, from Rachel Zegler's comments about politics now souring everything even further, to Mark Hamill's comments also dividing fans even more, and then we gotta talk about The Acolyte too, and how that show ending is causing all kinds of people to get really mad. Let's start with Snow White, because I don't think Yikes covers this enough. So in case you don't know, there's a Snow White movie happening. You may have heard about it. It stars Rachel Zegler as Snow White, who's apparently supposed to be the fairest of them all, plus Snow White has skin as white as snow according to the source material. And Zegler is not exactly that, but none of this surprises me really either. Disney has been casting diverse actors for a long time now for all sorts of roles. They also tend to race swap roles in order to inject more diversity. I mean, you saw this with The Little Mermaid, where she's now black all of a sudden because Hollywood hates gingers. Then of course there was Tinkerbell, who's now a small black girl over the white, blonde, blue-eyed pixie she was before, because again, diversity baby. Rachel Zegler is the next diversity inclusion, and like I said, she is not Snow White, even in the slightest. Although, here's hoping that Disney does keep this trend going and they eventually remake Tarzan again, and then they give a diverse actor a chance at the role. After all, Tarzan is normally a white man living in the jungle with monkeys. And I honestly don't think that Disney would be considering the racist backlash they would get if they ended up race swapping that role. But come on Disney, go! Make Tarzan a black guy. What's the worst that can happen? We're waiting, Disney. Go and make Tarzan black. After all, if you love diversity so much, you'll keep doing it, right? And if they don't, we know that this is all performative and really stupid. Anyway, Zegler made some really dumb comments, to put it lightly. In case you don't know, I'll catch you up quickly. The new trailer for Snow White came out. Zegler thanked the fans for the response to the trailer, and then she said, "And always remember Free Palestine." Uh-oh, indeed, dear viewer. You're probably thinking, well, what's the issue? Aren't people allowed to have political opinions? Well, yes, but actually no. You see, as long as your politics are considered correct across the board, then technically you're allowed to have them, doubly so if you're in the public eye. However, Rachel Zegler, who doesn't seem to be able to read the room very well, asks for the freedom of Palestine while working in Hollywood. And if you know anything about Hollywood, it is primarily ran by the people with the little hats on their head who say shalom. It also doesn't help that the guy who personally chose Zegler and brought her into Hollywood, and she kind of owes everything to, is none other than Steven Spielberg, who, as you may know already, is also one of those guys who says shalom and wears the tiny hats. And like I always say in my videos, where there's very nuclear political topics like this, including stuff like Palestine and Israel, I don't and will never tell you what side of any such war or whatever else to think. I have no right to tell you which side to pick. I'm not going to act like I know the intricacies of these wars or anything like that. However, what I can tell you is that Zegler's comments have enraged people unlike any other. It was one thing when she said Snow White was out of date, or the romance part of the story was weird, and she won't be saved by the prince because girl boss nonsense.
If I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed online.
The cartoon was made 85 years ago, and therefore it's extremely dated when it comes to the ideas of women being in roles of power and what a woman is fit for in the world. And so when we came to reimagining the actual role of Snow White, it became about the fairest of them all, meaning who is the most just and who can become a fantastic leader.
Hit the f***ing home runs, Disney!
None of it went over well for her. But somehow, what she's doing here has likely enraged places like Disney even further, to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if Disney just suplexes her to the curb in the near future. I mean, we only have to look at what happened to the former Scream star Melissa Barrera, who back in 2023, when the whole war thing kind of exploded into more international news, she ended up getting fired from Spyglass, which owns the Scream franchise. She also said to Free Palestine, and that what she said was considered hate speech according to Spyglass's executives. The company would respond back then to Barrera's comments by saying, "Spyglass's stance is unequivocally clear. We have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or the incitement of hate in any form, including false references to genocide, ethnic cleansing, Holocaust distortion, or anything that flagrantly crosses the line into hate speech." So, as you can see, once that happened, it kind of opened the gates of oblivion for where this could all go. So we're probably wondering, well, why hasn't Disney fired Rachel Zegler then for her comments? If I had to guess, I would wager they know if they do fire her, it would likely derail the performance of the movie even further. Considering that her face is on the cover of the movie and all of that, and it revolves around her character, yeah, this is likely not a very good idea. And if Disney were to fire Zegler for her comments now, it would incite a firestorm of political fusion so heated, it would cause the entire internet to explode. Can you imagine if Disney fired Zegler for her Palestine comments before the movie came out? Yeah, it would be crazy. If I had to guess, if they do end up firing her, it'll be quietly and less of a public thing. They'll just act like she doesn't exist, and then they'll just stop offering her roles altogether. And then over time, once they stop returning her phone calls, Zegler will likely make a statement on Twitter or something, saying that they don't want me anymore because of my comments, which yes, that too will cause a firestorm, but nowhere near as crazy if Disney actually confirmed it. And if Disney's higher-ups get pressed for it, they could just say, well, the movie didn't do well, and we wanted to pursue other actors to lead our potential franchises. It's just business, and then that way they can keep it nebulous even though deep down everybody knows why it really happened, come on. As if this mess wasn't bad enough, the news has seemingly reached the Times of Israel, which is a website dedicated to stories about these sorts of stuff and the ongoing war. Their article is titled, "Snow White Film Faces Anti-Israel Boycott, Calls Targeting Gal Gadot." Yeah, as if things couldn't get worse, they somehow did anyway. Now fans of Snow White and Disney in general are calling for the boycott of the film because Gal Gadot is in it. And in case you don't know, she's Israeli herself, and she did serve in the military there, although her time in the military is required by the country. So everyone of legal age must serve and all of that, but regardless, the fact that she served at all has led to more craziness than you can imagine. One user on Twitter said about Gal Gadot being cast as the evil queen, "A character that tries to end a child and steal her kingdom, how fitting." And yeah, as you can see, the response to that tweet was pretty huge, so this whole thing is not ending anytime soon. There's other comments too, like this one I'll put on screen, where users are demanding that people boycott Snow White in response to Gal Gadot being a part of the film. But then this begs the question if boycotting the film because of Gal Gadot is justified, considering by boycotting it, you're also dooming your other celebrity in the form of Rachel Zegler, who is pro-Palestine instead. It's a sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation right now. It seems more like the preferable goal here to this film for protesters is to ensure mutually assured destruction at this point. The entire film must be sacrificed upon some altar to appease both sides of the argument, which then makes Disney's efforts to salvage what they could of this movie falling to ruin no matter what they do. It's pretty wild, dude, because the movie could have just been a simple movie like any other release. I think it's very clear that Disney will try to control the narrative around their big tentpole movies going forward by writing in the contracts when actors sign on that they cannot do anything to derail the movie's image for any political reason. Because had that existed in the contract when Rachel Zegler signed it, then she wouldn't be able to voice her opinions on politics or international situations like she is right now. And look, before people say you're choosing a side, listen, I'm not, alright? I have no skin in this war or anything like that. I am not going to tell you which side you should support because this entire situation is very obviously nuclear waste levels of big yikes if you ask me. That being said, I don't really care which actor we're talking about here. I think we can all agree that actors in general, they just need to shut the hell up going forward. Because whenever one of them opens their mouths, especially these younger ones who are submerged in the activism side of the world, they are just doing nothing but causing really big headaches for everybody involved. And this is why I say that you should never attack your audience in any way, shape, or form. Because Rachel Zegler's comments, no matter what, will make someone somewhere in some way hate her, And unfortunately, what's done is done now. She's made her bed, pulled the pin on the grenade, and now she's just kind of waiting for the damn thing to detonate at this point. And then of course there's tons of people saying that Zegler being Snow White against Gal Gadot as the queen also makes no sense, because Snow White is meant to be the fairest of them all. This has obviously been getting to Rachel Zegler, since she did tweet this via Instagram, and shout out to Geeks and Gamers who posted this so I could actually see it. It says, "The fairest by the way." So the backlash and online discourse is really getting to her, isn't it? Just really bad, man. All you had to do was make the movie and just say thank you. That's all you ever have to do. But instead, you decided to open your mouth and just divide people, and now look where that's gotten you. The comments were not kind either, saying stuff like, "Bro is not the fairest, not even the fairest in the room, and didn't you almost derail the movie?" Yeah, people aren't buying this anymore, are they? I'm telling you, dude, when this movie launches in March 2025, it is going to be a social media firestorm. You're going to have pro-Palestine supporters fighting pro-Israel supporters, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers making fun of Rachel Zegler, and the entire internet is going to erupt like someone's bowels who just ate a ton of Taco Bell while chugging half a liter of Fireball liqueur. I don't think this mess even begins to cover what this release is going to be like. I know Star Wars has had its fair share of really bad takes recently, and actors of course also being idiots, but I genuinely think that Snow White is going to top all of them in terms of how poorly this all ends up going down. There has never been a more perfectly concocted Molotov cocktail of virtue signaling meets the socio-political state of the world like this in a long while. But the fact that it's reached a point where Gal Gadot is now being boycotted proves that this situation is definitely going to get worse going forward. And I already know that those interviews that are going to come up where Gal and Rachel will need to do for the movie, they are going to be so awkward for everybody involved. Knowing that both actors each side with a different faction in a war that is ongoing, dude, I just know that Bob Iger over there at Disney, he is doing somersaults in his office screaming at how poorly this is all going down right now. And it's not even the end of the insufferable problems that are plaguing Disney, since Mark Hamill has now been confirmed to have said what he said too. So I reported on this before, but back then I didn't know if it was 100% legit or not. Some claimed it was, others didn't. But now we have actual video proof of Mark Hamill telling conservative Star Wars fans to go force themselves, so please watch.
I said that before, I say, may the force be with you. Unless you're MAGA, then you can go force yourself. Listen, I like that phrase because it sounds dirty, but it's not. And hey, I don't wear blue. And I promised I wouldn't bring up politics. I won't tell you how to vote.
So it is real then, isn't it? Well, as if Star Wars couldn't get ruined anymore, I guess Mark Hamill is now doing the damage for them. What's interesting is that we know that Hamill will not be fired or blacklisted by Disney for supporting the Democrats, since the majority of Hollywood is an echo chamber that must all think and act the same pretty much. So Mark telling half of the American people to go force themselves is likely being applauded by places like Disney, which is not only not a good thing to do considering businesses need to make more money, but it just further proves how ass backwards our society is becoming. Social media has exposed these actors for being actual talking head pieces that show for the establishment all the time. And to see that the guy who played Luke Skywalker be this hateful is quite honestly sad to see. Hamill also referred to conservatives as the orange side because he's making a joke about Donald Trump, I guess. I would show that other clip, but it has Disney Star Wars music in it, which is copyrighted, and I don't need Mickey Mouse crawling through my floorboards looking for his money, so I can't really show it, unfortunately. But it's Hamill and a congressman saying that you should vote Democrat pretty much, again proving that the line between actor and politician, it just blurs every day. Hamill is sadly more like the Joker in the Batman series than Luke Skywalker these days. He's just a schlubby old man who's clawing for relevancy, who champions whatever is politically correct to champion. I guarantee you if Trump was the politically correct choice to endorse, Hamill would be slobbering all over Trump like a Twi'lek in a bikini, dude. Speaking of clawing for relevancy, The Acolyte got cancelled recently as well, Which, can I just say thank God for that? Because I watched the entire series and it was abysmal. Not only were there no payoffs and plenty of questionable character motivations, it just simply didn't feel like a Star Wars show to me at all in the first place. I mean, okay, fine, yeah, there were lightsabers, but beyond that, the show felt more like some weird, generic fantasy slop than anything else. From its really bad story and forgettable characters and member-bearing people with stuff like Plagueis, it was such a misfire, my god. Woke Star Wars fans are clamoring saying why would they cancel it? But it turns out that the show had abysmal ratings almost for the entirety of its existence. The finale was only able to garner 335 million minutes watched. By the way, the premiere of Ahsoka had almost 900 million minutes watched for comparison. So the Acolyte was pretty much catering to like 1/3 the audience or even less than that when compared to Ahsoka. And by the way, Ahsoka also underperformed as well, although not nearly as bad as the Acolyte did, clearly. And apparently this decision to cancel the show was decided as early as July, which was right around when the finale debuted. WDW Pro, a friend of the channel, he confirmed that on his channel back in July already. So the death of the Acolyte has been known to the people who worked on it for almost 2 months already, as of the making of this video. Of course, some will say it got cancelled because it stars people of color or women, which is not true at all, since both women and people of color have existed in Star Wars prior to this show existing. Just look at the original films or prequels for evidence of this. The show was hated because it broke lore, like having Ki-Adi-Mundi alive over 50 years before he was born for no reason, and then having a story about some Siths being alive doing things during a time period where no Sith activity was ever reported, considering it was the High Republic era, which is an era of Star Wars that many fans consider to be the most boring and tedious time period for the series in general. Although Amandla Stenberg, who starred as the twins, is likely also mad about this, the truth is that her acting was just... it was so awful, man, my god. The only semi-good actors in this godforsaken show were the Squid Game guy and the bad guy Sith dude somewhat. Everybody else, they just kind of felt like afterthoughts, and although the show ended with Smilo Ren taking Osha as his acolyte, spoilers I guess, who cares? It's very clear that the show will never explore these ideas, which... thank God for that. Because to me, this show just wasn't Star Wars. It was masquerading and bastardizing the IP to fit a woke agenda, and then mask those initiatives with piss-poor storytelling and lore-breaking changes. And also, really bad hair and makeup. Like, you guys remember that Torben guy? You know, the young Jedi kid who randomly just offs himself and has probably some of the worst hair and makeup I think I've ever seen in a piece of media ever? Like, I'm not joking. Look at how this guy's makeup looks. They tried to make a guy who's clearly around like 22 years old at best look like he's 50 all of a sudden, and it just looks so bizarre. His hair and makeup, it looks like something that I would do if I was in charge of that department, while also having absolutely zero skills or experience in that field whatsoever. He just looks terrible. They could have at least put a hood on his head to mask the bummed up makeup job. And then one user named Mac on Twitter showed with evidence that every single Disney Star Wars show has diminishing returns in their finales compared to the previous series. Book of Boba Fett had the most at 860 million minutes watched, and you can just see the numbers going down as each series released in order. And remember that Acolyte barely broke 300 million, so Boba Fett's finale almost had 3 times the viewership numbers. And that show was also ass. My god, it was so bad. But the apathy has very clearly set in for this IP as a whole if each show is performing as poorly as they are one after another like this. The movies already took a long hiatus after they too had massive diminished returns, and now with the shows too, I mean, what is even left at this point? Skeleton Crew comes out this fall, but it's mostly a show meant for kids, so I mean, I wouldn't really judge that show or be as hard on it myself, at first glance anyway. Unless of course it ends up ruining the canon even more, but in terms of the future of Star Wars, doesn't look like anything's going to be doing that well. The future of Star Wars is currently darker than Darth Vader's sphincter right now, and unless Kathleen Kennedy does something to fix the problems at hand, that problem will just persist. Honestly, what KK is doing, it feels like a content creator who just refuses to evolve with the times. They keep doing the same thing expecting new results, but it doesn't work that way. You have to eventually just look at what's happening and then come to terms with the fact that what you're doing is not working and then course correct. And unlike Marvel, which is apparently doing just that, Star Wars just refuses to change. And I think ultimately it's because of Kathleen Kennedy and her own hubris. This crazy woman just refuses to admit that she's not going to win. Kathleen really wants the Force to be female, and it's very clear that not even the ladies are showing up to support the nonsense either. Of course, fans are trying to run petitions to bring the Acolyte back, but it won't work. The show did abysmally bad, and it almost costed like $200 million to make. You know how many sandwiches you can buy with $200 million? A lot. This show is yet another blight on Kathleen Kennedy's career, and at this point she's going to have to start selling feet pics in order to keep Lucasfilm open if things keep going the way that they are. And an update to this video, so it turns out that Disney really wants you to forget that the Acolyte existed in the first place. Because it turns out that they actually quietly removed all the merchandise from their stores that was connected to the show already. So this means only a few things going forward. One is that Disney is scrubbing the show from reality and none of it will be canon, or two, the merch wasn't selling anyway. But they've never really delisted merch like this so quickly, which makes me believe it's being done because they want us to forget this even existed. But that ain't gonna happen. It's crazy though that they are doing this to the show so early after it released. I mean, too bad Disney can't make fans forget about Rachel Zegler either, because that would have solved a ton of their problems as well. But that's where we're at right now. The comments Rachel Zegler made has now put Gal Gadot in the crossfires. Mark Hamill is confirmed to have said what he said, and Disney is all but deleting the Acolyte from existence. Damn, dude. Nothing of value was lost though, so it's okay. But what do you think about all of this? Also, my first stream is live in case you want to watch it. I did it with Grums and Marty O'Donnell, the former composer of Halo and Destiny. It was a hell of a fun time. You can find it on my channel under the live bar. As always, thanks to my subscribers, patrons, and members for their support. Thanks for watching, subscribing, all of that, and have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon.